Who am I going to be for Halloween?
I got one of those pick one out of 4 games through one of my social media feeds. You know, the game where one gets removed from existence and the rest can stay. The topic was slasher movie villains, and the choices were Michael Myers, Jason Voorhees, Freddy Krueger, and Art the Clown. Of course, I immediately answered Art the Clown. There are many reasons why, but perhaps the easiest explanation is to look at the history of these characters. Michael Myers was created in 1978 and has appeared in 12 Halloween movies, not counting Halloween 3's Season of the Witch. Jason Voorhees was created in 1980 and has appeared in all 12 Friday the 13th movies, including the first one in which he doesn't kill anybody until the final scene. Freddy Krueger was created in 1984 and has appeared in 9 A Nightmare on Elm Street movies, including the meta-movie Wes Craven's New Nightmare. Art the Clown has appeared as the slasher antagonist in the 3 feature-length films of the Terrifier series since 2016, as well as some short films made prior. So he hasn't been around as long, and he hasn't had as many movies as the previous slasher villains. This comparison, however, seems a little unfair. I mean, have I given Art the Clown a bad rap simply because he's the new kid in slasher school? I mean, I don't love his movies, yet I can't ignore him, and not just because of the marketing. There is definitely something to him. If you've not been paying attention to horror for the past few years, you probably don't know about Art the Clown. You might have even answered that eliminate one question with Art the Clown by default, simply for not knowing who he is. But you might have also seen an entire section reserved for him at Spirit Halloween and thought to yourself, who is this black and white clown with the nasty teeth? And if that is you, the person saying that, not the clown, let me bring you up to speed. Damien Leone initially created Art the Clown as a character for his short film The Ninth Circle. In the movie, Art terrorizes a woman in a train station. The clown's combination of absurd antics and mounting antagonism made him a highlight. Leone would put Art into another short film, Terrifier, where he became even more antagonizing and the lead killer. The shorts were strong enough to both be incorporated into the 2013 anthology film All Hallows Eve. Art the Clown ended up being a highlight of that film due to Art being a real slasher presence. Also because the rest of the movie was just bad. Now, while All Hallows Eve continued on with a series of sequels that nobody really paid attention to, like seriously, the 3rd and 4th films don't even have Wikipedia pages, Art the Clown would get his own feature film with 2016's Terrifier. This is the film where Art the Clown started becoming more of a defined character. Kinda. The film definitely presents him as a threat who stalks his prey. I mean, he's creepy when he's present, and his kills are cruel and gory. But we don't really know much about Art in the film. All we know is that he mutilates people, and he apparently can't die. There is some mild toying with convention, given that Victoria is the final girl, but still gets her face mutilated, and she becomes a killer herself. But outside of that, the film feels very underdeveloped, which even Damien Leone admits to a certain degree. Clearly, more work was put into Art's makeup and the gory special effects than anything else that would define the killer clown. 2022's Terrifier 2 was when Art really started taking off. This was a surprising strike of lightning for being such a hit at the box office, and not just by indie standards either. Making $15 million on a budget of $250,000 is no small feat. Art the Clown is given more depth with the presence of a mysterious clown girl referred to as Little Pale Girl. The Pale Girl seems to act as a sidekick for Art to interact with, an assistant for helping with his recovery, and a guide for directing him towards his targets. In the film, she points towards the teenager Sienna Shaw, a girl who might be the only one who can defeat Art's evil. The Pale Girl also has the ability to possess bodies and needs to do this so she can cause evil more presently in the mortal realm. The sequel also settles on a protagonist with Sienna. Her father apparently experienced Art's carnage and left behind a sword that can kill the immortal clown. The sword can also resurrect Sienna, allowing her to survive Art's murders and chop his head off. While Sienna succeeds in decapitation, the little pale girl makes off with Art's head to resurrect the clown. She does so through possessing Victoria from the previous film, and apparently by making her pregnant with Art's head, which is another thing I guess she can do. So a lot is happening in the sequel with more characters, but Art the Clown is still kind of an enigma. He's better defined as a personification of unstoppable evil, but not much more than that. The Clown Cafe nightmare sequences, well, it's pretty good, but it just feels like another set piece for Art to clown around with, instead of revealing anything more about his character. It's not bad to have a scene that exists for little more than incredible gore with decor, but the problem is that most of the movie just feels like this. One of the biggest ways Terrifier 2 strikes against convention is that it's a long movie. It's uncommon for a modern horror movie these days to go any longer than, about 90 minutes. And Terrifier 2 runs 138 minutes. It's not that the film has a particularly long story worth telling, it comes off more like an elongation for the sake of more gore. And honestly, I'd be okay with this if there was some consistency in the kills. But they're just kind of all over the map. At one point in the film, the killer clown scalps a woman and then pours salt on her wounds. It gets the job done by being gross and exceptionally cruel, but it goes on for too long. Later in the movie, Art just blows somebody's face off with a shotgun, and that's it. No clever tricks or extending the pain, just a shotgun kill. Albeit it does have very meaty chunks. I will give some credit to the gore in that scene. But when you go from very gross and cruel horror to just like, very shocking and very quick deaths, it kind of loses the allure. Just kind of like, that's it? I got that really cool scene where Art was, having way too much fun just mutilating this woman, and then the next scene he's just shooting people? Like, there's not much consistency here. 2024's Terrifier 3 comes the closest to making Art more of a cohesive villain by continuing the story of Sienna. As Sienna tries to recover from Art's previous massacre, the killer clown is revived thanks to Victoria, who is now possessed by the Pale Girl. The duo also need to hibernate for some reason. Once they awaken, it's Christmas time, and Art goes on a holiday rampage dressed as Santa Claus. After some solid kills of brutalizing a bar, blowing up a mall Santa display, and chopping off limbs with a chainsaw, Art and the possessed Victoria return to targeting Sienna. They get further this time by killing off the remaining family of Sienna, and then placing a crown of thorns on her head, as if the Jesus similarities weren't vocal enough in the past film. The Pale Girl nearly succeeds in possessing Sienna, until Sienna acquires her sword and then decapitates Victoria, which apparently sends the Pale Girl back to hell. Lucky for Art, he doesn't need her, as he gets away without the need for resurrection in the upcoming fourth film. Again, lots of disgusting gore effects, including one sequence involving rats and a tube shoved down somebody's throat, but not as much of a revelation about Art's whole deal. That said, Art has much more personality and cleverness in his kills for the third time around. He even has his own Christmas song in the film.
It's a Terrifier Christmas, let the horror fill your heart. With your footsteps, that's not Santa, it's a jolly clown named Art.
Now, despite all these improvements, Art just doesn't seem to have found his voice yet, and no, I don't mean that literally. While his kills definitely have a darkly comedic vibe, they are very scattershot compared to other slasher villains. Michael Myers targeted suburbia with his silent stalking. You could sometimes see and hear him coming, but his cold confidence made him frightening. He would just mindlessly march forward until he killed someone, either with a knife or his bare hands. Jason Voorhees had the element of surprise and usually punished those who had sex. His kills were generally with a machete or whatever he could find around the campgrounds, like axes and arrows. Freddy Krueger would play into the fears of his victims to use nightmares against them. And I always loved Freddy's kills because he used the dream world to create different themes. In Nightmare on Elm Street 3, Dream Warriors, he kills a TV-obsessed woman by morphing out of the television and forcing her through the screen. In Nightmare on Elm Street 5, The Dream Child, a woman worried about her weight is force-fed her own guts by Freddy at a dinner table. In Freddy's Dead, The Final Nightmare, Freddy uses the power glove on a gamer to murder him in a video game. Freddy's punchlines were not always great, but he definitely had a personality all his own.
Now I'm playing with power!
And Art just doesn't have his full act together yet, even when compared to other murderous clowns. Pennywise from It would feed on a community's fears, luring in children with his clown appearance. The killer clowns from outer space might have been aliens, but they still stayed true to their carnival theme. From what I've gathered from Art's many appearances and wiki articles, his story is a convoluted pastiche of representing evil and trying to defeat the ultimate personifications of good. The anthology film All Hallows Eve heavily implies that Art is a member of a satanic cult. This cult aspect doesn't seem as present in Terrifier 1, but it does seem more vocal in Terrifier 2. His targets in Terrifier 1 seem to be those who ridicule him, but that shifts to associations with the Harbinger of Good in Terrifier 2. Terrifier 3 is the closest the film series gets to better defining Art's obsession with defeating good and his powers against it, revealing more of his motives through his actions and more of his associations with hell. And all of this makes Art rather hard to pin down when compared to other slasher villains. With the previous slasher stars, you can generally explain their origins without too much confusion. Michael Myers was a mentally disturbed man whose childhood trauma of killing on Halloween carried into his slaughter of the suburbs. Jason Voorhees drowned as a child at Camp Crystal Lake and takes his revenge on the camp counselors who were not paying attention to their campers, guided towards revenge by his dead mother. Freddy Krueger was a child killer who was burned alive by the victim's parents and threatened to kill young people in their dreams as revenge against the community. Chucky is the soul of serial killer Charles Lee Ray, who possesses a toy as a means of survival and wants to find a way to possess a human body to continue living and killing. Now, over the course of several sequels, more lore was added to all these stories involving demons and other supernatural elements, but the origins of these slasher villains remains firm enough to be explained rather easily. But there isn't much grounding for Art. It feels like his origins are being told in reverse, as though Damien Leone just shot the arrow first and then just drew the target wherever it lands. So I'm not as inclined to look at Art the same way I do Michael, Jason, Freddy, or Chucky. But those slasher villains were all created in the 20th century, and I mean, what other slasher villains do we have that were created in the 21st century that are going to have that same level of staying power and star status? Well, there's John Kramer from the Saw franchise, but he's become tricky to weave into the films considering that John died during Saw 3. Most of the sequels that followed usually featured somebody else carrying on his legacy. They are John's puppets, much like the literal puppet that has become the franchise's mascot. That's why when most people think of Saw, they think of the puppet with the swirls on his cheeks and not John Kramer. Even the film Jigsaw, the first film in the franchise not to be titled Saw, still had to have the swirl on Kramer's face for the poster to remind you that it's a Saw movie. Annabelle has become a bit of a horror celebrity with multiple movies, but it's not so much the doll as it is whoever's currently possessing the doll. She has a distinct appearance, but not much personality beyond just looking creepy and showing up in creepy places. There are returning supernatural killers like Bagul and the Nun, but these characters operate more in the shadows and are usually more interesting for the intrigue of defeating them than anything else. And much like Annabelle, they don't really have much of a personality. A killer with personality would be Mark Duplass's character of Joseph from the Creep series of movies, but even with his weird masks, he's more about manipulation than being a presence of terror. Megan had potential as the foul-mouthed king bitch AI android slasher. However, for her sequel, Megan 2.0, she was reformed into a Terminator 2 style anti-hero who only kills bad AI. So she can't really be a slasher villain if she's now an anti-hero, but maybe the series will eventually reboot to reform her. The serial killer Grabber from The Black Phone has some iconography and potential, but it's a little too soon to gauge with only 2 films. I might have to wait and see with him. Some might argue William Afton from Five Nights at Freddy's due to the built-in popularity of the video games that it's based on, but just no. Trying to describe William Afton's deal by the movie alone is near impossible. I should not have to play every game, read every wiki, and watch numerous YouTube theory videos to answer the most basic questions about this character, like why does William need to maintain a watch on his murderous Muppet factory? I shouldn't have to do that much homework to understand Afton's motivations in the first film. It's not like this is some cryptic David Lynch puzzle box. It's a film about killer animatronics with obnoxious cameos by YouTubers. I will admit that William Afton does have a look with the, the animatronic suit, but he has little personality and baffling motivations. Captain Spaulding was a great slasher villain for embracing a showmanship mentality and vicious kills. He's great, but he's a package deal for working alongside Otis Driftwood and Baby Firefly. Despite appearing in the 3 Rob Zombie films with House of a Thousand Corpses, The Devil's Rejects, and 3 from Hell, Sid Haig unfortunately passed away in 2019. Zombie could continue the Firefly saga if he wanted to, but there'd be a massive void there without Captain Spaulding in the crew. Like, he really was like the slasher star of that series. The only entities that come close to being 21st century slasher stars with the power to return and be icons in pop culture are the Strangers. But they're more of an ensemble group and don't have much character either. I mean, they're just kind of known for wearing masks. And honestly, I don't think they'll be that iconic with common monikers like Scarecrow and Pinup Girl. So compared to all those other killers, Art the Clown is the de facto slasher star of our age. He has some personality and some lore. He's engaged with the central plot, and he takes charge of his kills. He has returning characters and ambitions to kill, ambiguous as they might be at times. He is also irredeemably evil, so there's no chance of him ever going all Megan 2.0. Also, the actor who plays him, David Howard Thornton, has stated that he's autistic, so I really want to love the Terrifier films, but I sadly just don't yet. Not quite. I'm almost there. Because Art the Clown has potential, even if his films don't reflect that. Because All Hallows Eve is just bad. And Terrifier 1 is forgettable despite some decent gore. Terrifier 2 is more notable for being a small horror film with a memorable villain, some gruesome gore, and being a box office hit, though it still drags on a bit too long and is still sloppy with establishing Art's abilities and drive. Terrifier 3 is easily the best of these films for better defining the characters, even though it still drags and is still very fast and loose with Art's motivations and demonic powers. I like the idea of Art the Clown more than the films that he appears in. That makes me a little more hopeful for what film he'll be in next. And maybe the next Terrifier film will be the one that finally wins me over. Art is a good slasher villain. He just needs a good movie so I can better appreciate the grotesque scenes of Art chopping up his victims and not struggle to explain Art's deal beyond just being an evil clown who kills people. There are plenty of evil clowns in movies, but only one as sadistic and pure evil as Art the Clown. Pennywise doesn't have shit on Art the Clown.
It's a jolly clown named Art.
Hey there folks, thanks for watching my video on Art the Clown. If you enjoyed it, be sure to like and subscribe for more video essays and movie reviews that I do on this channel. I also have a Patreon listed below, which if you sign up on there, you can get early access to some of these videos and get access to some of the books that I'm currently writing on movie and television history. Thanks for watching. If you're going to watch any of the Terrifier films, I'd say watch the third one. I'd say, you might want to watch them all in order to, catch up on, but if you really want the best one, just watch Terrifier 3. It's definitely the one that I like the most.